If you're a diehard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. All right, let's dive into this. And I know what you're thinking, Browns fans. Trade Myles Garrett? No way. I get it. The man is a generational talent, a freak of nature on the defensive line, the kind of guy who single-handedly changes how an offense has to game plan every single week. But let's be brutally honest for a second. The Cleveland Browns, sitting at 2-6, are not going anywhere this season. They're not sniffing the playoffs, and they're not a few tweaks away from contending. They are, once again, staring down another year of rebuilding, retooling, and rethinking who they want to be as a franchise. And that's exactly why the idea of trading Myles Garrett before the deadline, even if it sounds crazy on the surface, might actually make more sense than anyone in the front office wants to admit. Look, when ESPN's Adam Schefter says there's no chance Garrett gets traded, you know that comes from inside the building. Someone up there in Berea is saying people have a better chance of winning the lottery. That's how untouchable Garrett supposedly is. And sure, he's earned that level of respect. Through 8 games, the guy's got 22 tackles and 10 sacks. Those are all-pro numbers. Those are Defensive Player of the Year numbers. And he's playing at a level most defensive ends only dream about. He's fresh off a huge contract extension. He's the face of the defense. And he's the biggest reason the Browns even have a pulse on that side of the ball. But here's the hard truth. Elite production doesn't mean elite results when the rest of your roster is a mess. Garrett's doing his job. He's dominating. But the Browns are still losing. Let's rewind to Week 9 against the New England Patriots. Garrett racks up 5 sacks. 5. That's the kind of stat line that should win you a game almost by itself. But what happens? The Browns still lose by 19 points. That's not a Garrett problem. That's a roster problem. It's a culture problem. It's a systemic problem that goes way beyond one defensive superstar. You can't build a sustainable winner in today's NFL around one pass rusher when you don't have a solid quarterback, when your offensive line is inconsistent, and when your defense outside of your superstar can't close out games. The Browns are stuck in that gray zone of trying to win now, while also being nowhere near ready to actually compete. That's a dangerous place to live in, and it's where teams get trapped for years. Now, let's talk about what Cleveland does have going for it, the future. And honestly, that future looks pretty bright. They've been drafting smart lately, something we haven't been able to say about this franchise for most of the last 2 decades. They've nailed some of their recent picks, with cornerstone guys like Quinton Judkins and Carson Schweissinger, both second-rounders who look like long-term building blocks. These are the types of players that give you a foundation, the kind that can grow together and form the core of a new era of Browns football. Add in the potential of young quarterbacks Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders, who, if either pans out, could finally give this team stability under center, and you start to see the outlines of something real, something hopeful. But here's the catch. Building that future takes more than a handful of young players. It takes assets, a lot of them. It takes draft picks, flexibility, and the willingness to make the hard decisions now so you can reap the rewards later. And that's where trading Myles Garrett, as painful as it sounds, enters the conversation. Because Garrett isn't just a star, he's a franchise changer in the trade market. We're talking about a player who could easily command a first-round pick, maybe even 2, and possibly an additional day 2 pick or a promising young player in return. Imagine a Super Bowl contender like the 49ers, the Eagles, or even the Ravens coming in desperate for a final piece on defense. Those teams would pay through the nose for a guy like Garrett. 2 first-round picks and a player? That's not out of the question. If you're the Browns, that kind of offer forces you to think. Because right now, you already have 2 first-round picks in 2026, thanks to the Travis Hunter, Jacksonville Jaguars trade from this year's draft. You've already set yourself up to be active and aggressive when that time comes. But what if you could stack even more capital? What if you could walk into the next 2 drafts with an arsenal of picks, the kind of war chest that allows you to go after the players you want, the kind that lets you build something sustainable? That's how teams like the Detroit Lions and Houston Texans turned their luck around. They sold high on their stars when it hurt, but it paid off in the long run. Now, of course, this isn't a decision without risk. Trading a guy like Myles Garrett is like cutting off your right arm. He's not just productive. He's a leader, a locker room presence, the guy younger players look up to. He embodies what the Browns want to be. Physical, relentless, and passionate. Letting him go would send shockwaves through the fan base and the locker room alike. But here's the flip side. Sometimes, leadership means recognizing when your team's timeline doesn't match your star's prime. Garrett's in his prime right now, dominating at a level that deserves to be seen in January football, not meaningless December games. It's almost unfair to him to keep him in a situation where his brilliance is wasted week after week. And that's the emotional heart of this argument. If Cleveland is honest with itself, this isn't a team ready to compete in 2025. Maybe not even 2026. They're still trying to figure out who they are, what kind of offense they want to run, and whether their young quarterback will actually be the guy. By the time the Browns are ready to truly contend, Garrett will be on the wrong side of 30, and his value, both on the field and in the trade market, will never be higher than it is right now. That's the NFL reality. Great teams stay great by knowing when to sell high, not when it's too late. If the Browns were to pull the trigger, the message would be clear. 2025 isn't about chasing a miracle. It's about building for the long haul. It's about patience and vision, two things Cleveland hasn't always had. Fans might hate it at first, but imagine the payoff. Imagine walking into the 2026 draft with multiple first-rounders, ready to stack up on both sides of the ball, finally giving your next franchise quarterback a real team to grow with. Imagine turning one star player into 5 or 6 core contributors who can define the next decade of Browns football. That's how dynasties are born, through gutsy, uncomfortable decisions that take courage and long-term thinking. And look, nobody's saying you have to trade Garrett just to make a splash. This isn't about being reckless or tearing it all down for the sake of headlines. It's about being strategic. The Browns have already shown they can draft well. They've already shown they can develop young talent. But to truly flip the script, to go from perennial rebuilders to legitimate contenders, they need the draft capital that only a blockbuster trade can bring. Garrett gives them that opportunity. You can't say the same about anyone else on the roster. There's not a single other player in Cleveland who could bring back that kind of haul. So yeah, I get it. Trading Myles Garrett sounds insane. It sounds like waving the white flag. But maybe, just maybe, it's actually the smartest play the Browns could make. Because if you strip away the emotion and look at this like a chess match, you realize that sometimes the best way to win in the future is to sacrifice a piece you love in the present. Garrett's 10 sacks this season are incredible, but they haven't moved the needle. He's been a one-man army on a team that can't score, can't protect its quarterback, and can't close games. That's not his fault. That's just the truth. And if the Browns truly want to change their future, they need to start acting like a franchise that's thinking 3 steps ahead, not just reacting to what's right in front of them. Trading Myles Garrett wouldn't be an admission of defeat. It would be a declaration of intent. It would say, we're not chasing short-term respectability anymore. We're building something real. That's the kind of mindset that separates the teams that stay stuck in mediocrity from the ones that finally break through. So yeah, Browns Nation, brace yourselves. You don't have to love the idea, but you should at least understand it. Because if there's one thing history has taught us in the NFL, it's this. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that set you free. And for Cleveland, that decision might just start with picking up the phone and seeing what the market has to say about number 95. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. A storm is brewing in Cleveland, and the NFL world is buzzing like never before. Sources close to the organization are whispering about what could be one of the most explosive confrontations in recent football history. Myles Garrett, the fearsome defensive end whose name alone strikes dread into the hearts of quarterbacks across the league, is reportedly demanding a trade. Yes, you heard that right. Myles Garrett, the cornerstone of the Browns' defense, is allegedly ready to force a move away from the city he has called home for his entire professional career. And the catalyst? A confrontation with the Browns front office that insiders are describing as nothing short of explosive. The details, naturally, are murky, but what has emerged is a picture of tension, frustration, and a relationship that seems to have reached a breaking point. For months now, rumors have been swirling around the Browns organization. Garrett, a player who has consistently been among the league leaders in sacks and defensive impact, has reportedly grown increasingly dissatisfied with the team's direction, coaching decisions, and even personnel moves, or the lack thereof. What's fueling the latest buzz is an alleged meeting with the Browns front office that insiders say did not go well. The confrontation reportedly escalated quickly, with Garrett expressing his frustration in no uncertain terms, leaving management stunned. Sources suggest that the defensive star felt undervalued and unheard, a sentiment that, if true, could explain why one of the NFL's most dominant defenders is suddenly considering a departure. Social media, as expected, has erupted with speculation. Fans, analysts, and former players alike are weighing in on what this could mean for the Browns and for the league as a whole. The sheer shock of a player of Garrett's caliber demanding a trade is enough to set any franchise into a state of panic. Could the Browns really entertain the idea of moving a player whose presence alone alters the landscape of games week after week? Or is this a negotiation tactic, a high-stakes game of leverage designed to push the team into making significant changes? The whispers are loud, and the uncertainty is palpable. Adding fuel to the fire, there are murmurs that the friction between Garrett and the Browns isn't solely about on-field matters. Personality clashes with management, disagreements over team philosophy, and a perceived lack of commitment to building a championship-contending roster are all being cited as potential sources of his discontent. One source close to the situation even suggested that Garrett's patience has worn thin after years of inconsistent performances and controversial front office decisions. While Garrett has always been outspoken, this alleged confrontation is being described as far more intense and public than anything previously seen, hinting at a relationship that may have truly soured beyond repair. The implications of such a move are enormous. The Browns, who have invested heavily in building around Garrett's dominance, could face a seismic shift in strategy if he were to leave. On the flip side, the ripple effects across the league would be equally dramatic. Teams in desperate need of a game-changing defensive presence would undoubtedly circle like vultures, while trade rumors could dominate the off-season chatter for weeks, perhaps months. Imagining Garrett in a new uniform, wreaking havoc on opposing quarterbacks for a rival team, is enough to make Browns fans sweat and NFL executives strategize feverishly. But there's another layer to this story that insiders are hinting at: the personal toll. Garrett, known for his intensity and passion for the game, may be reaching a crossroads. Reports suggest he is weighing not only the professional but also the personal implications of such a drastic move. Moving away from the city where he's spent his entire career, leaving behind teammates he's developed close bonds with, and entering a new locker room culture are not decisions taken lightly by any player, no matter how talented. These human elements add depth to the narrative, transforming it from a mere trade rumor into a story of potential upheaval, emotion, and high-stakes negotiation. Meanwhile, the Browns front office is reportedly scrambling to manage the situation. Insiders suggest that executives are assessing both their negotiating position and the optics of the confrontation leaking to the public. In a league where perception is almost as critical as performance, how the Browns respond could define the franchise's trajectory for years to come. Are they willing to meet Garrett's demands? Or are they prepared to hold firm, risking a potential standoff that could dominate headlines well into the offseason? The tension is thick, and every insider source seems to have a slightly different spin on what might happen next, fueling the rumor mill and keeping fans on edge. And let's not forget the social and media spectacle that is already unfolding. Pundits are dissecting every statement, every social media post, and every past interaction between Garrett and management, searching for hidden clues. Former players and analysts are weighing in, with opinions ranging from "this is a negotiation ploy" to "Myles Garrett is done in Cleveland." Meanwhile, the fans, as ever, are divided. Some are pleading for patience, hoping for reconciliation, while others are bracing for the inevitable heartbreak of losing one of the franchise's most electrifying talents. It's a drama that feels like it belongs on a stage far larger than the confines of First Energy Stadium. What's clear is that the next few weeks, or even months, will be critical. Every move, every statement, and every leak will be scrutinized, debated, and dissected. Garrett's situation is a powder keg, and the NFL landscape is watching closely, anticipating the impact not just for the Browns, but for the league as a whole. This is more than a rumor. It's a story of ambition, frustration, and the high-stakes world of professional sports where careers, legacies, and fan loyalties can pivot on a single confrontation. As of now, the Cleveland Browns are at the center of a storm, and Myles Garrett stands at its eye, a figure of immense talent and equally immense tension. Whether this ends in reconciliation, a blockbuster trade, or a prolonged standoff, one thing is certain. The NFL world has never had its eyes on Cleveland quite like this. The whispers are loud, the drama is palpable, and the ripple effects of this confrontation could redefine not only the Browns' future, but also the competitive balance of the entire league. In the end, the story of Myles Garrett's explosive confrontation with the Browns management is a cautionary tale about power, frustration, and the delicate balance between player and team. It's about what happens when a superstar feels constrained, when talent meets bureaucracy, and when patience finally reaches its limit. For fans, it's a roller coaster of hope, fear, and speculation. For the league, it's a reminder that even the most dominant figures are human, vulnerable to the same conflicts and emotions that affect any high-pressure environment. And for Myles Garrett himself, it's a pivotal moment, a potential turning point in a career defined by talent, intensity, and an unyielding desire to dominate the field. As this saga unfolds, one thing is undeniable. The NFL has never been short on drama, but this could be one of the most unforgettable chapters yet. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!